First up is The Banshees of Inisherin, which is the latest film from Martin McDonagh, who did In Bruges, 3 Billboards, and he reunites with Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, which is always a delight to see together. The film takes place on a small island off the coast of Ireland, and it's just like a small town, and the two of them are friends, but no longer friends, and the film explores that dynamic, and also Colin Farrell's character sort of, I don't know, maybe having a moment of self-discovery. It's very strange. And I think one of the challenges for me personally with this film is that I'm not proud of what I'm about to say, but for me and the screening that I was at, it might have been preferable to actually have been watching this film home alone. And the film is visually gorgeous. You know, the island looks beautiful, the skies are amazing, the sets, all this stuff. But the audience that I was with was a bit, I don't know, it felt very performative, their reactions to it, and I could not hear what was happening. So maybe this also speaks to the theater in particular I was in, but it also would have been nice to have subtitles. And it's not that I can't generally understand the Irish accent, but some of it was just, I couldn't hear it over the thing. Anyway, this was a me problem, but I don't know if this is a movie that you have to see in theaters in order to appreciate it. So just be aware of that. It also has Kerry Condon, who gives truly, she was actually the standout performance of the film for me, which is very impressive. And also, I wish, more time had been given to her character. And you've also got Barry Keoghan. So there's a lot of reunions happening, not just Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson, and Martin McDonagh, but you've got Barry Keoghan and Colin Farrell from Killing of a Sacred Deer. This is a very actor, capital A, actor film, and I can very much see how probably nominations are going to come from it, which is fine. The thing I liked about it is that it is limited in scope, and it is about relationships, and you don't need a lot to get into those relationships. They are simultaneously surface level understandable very quickly, but also there's a lot of depth to them. The challenge for me is that the one relationship I wanted the most depth to and wanted to know the most about, the whole point of the film is not letting you in on some of that. And so it's just this, not cat and mouse game, but it's withholding from you the thing that would be the most satisfying. And I don't know if it does it as enjoyably as I would have hoped. Maybe that is the point of it, and I just have missed out and was so distracted by other things. But I would consider giving it a rewatch, which especially in an award season is a big thing for me. So that is a compliment to the film, certainly. There are some tougher themes that don't go too in-depth, but they're there. And there's also a fair amount of gore that I was not expecting that was deeply disturbing. So be aware of that going into it. I know it's like a tiny bit of spoiler in that sense, but I do think you should probably be aware if you are squeamish about things like that. I think Colin Farrell is very good in this. I think Brendan Gleeson is amazing, but as I said, Kerry Condon was my favorite of them. As much as I thought it was a well put together film, I also could have seen this being a very good play. And Martin McDonagh is a playwright, and yes, setting it as a film and having access to these locations is great. But because the scope of it is so limited to the interpersonal relationships, there are times where I'm like, okay, and it's not long. It's not a long film, but in spite of having a decent time of it, I am not in a place where I am saying, hey, absolutely run out and go see this movie. And I do think that is one of the challenges when a film gets released in the time it is getting released, is that, things do get overhyped and there's a lot of focus being put on the performance and things like that. And it does create this expectation where I think if I had discovered this just sort of on my own or had watched it, I would have enjoyed it more. So I want to temper your expectations in that sense. I still think it's enjoyable. I laughed a fair amount. There are there's a lot of emotional scenes. So it does have that range. I just wish it had been more satisfactory in terms of building out a little bit, giving us just like a little bit more into these lives, even though they give us some surface bits, but I wanted more. And that is such a double-edged sword. But overall, I'm going to give it a 3.8 out of 5. The other film I have this week is called Wendell and Wild, and it is a stop-motion animated film from Henry Selick, who is an absolutely legendary stop-motion director. He is actually the director of Nightmare Before Christmas. I know a lot of people associate it with Tim Burton, but he is the director. He did James and the Giant Peach and Coraline, and this is actually his latest film since Coraline. Yes, stop-motion films take a very long time to make. There's also been some drama in between, but excited to see him back in the director's chair. and not only back in the director's chair, but he has two wonderful collaborators on this who most people probably know, or likely know their names at this point if you're not an animation person, more likely, and that is Keegan-Michael Key and Jordan Peele. So it is a Key and Peele reunion in the world of stop motion. Could you ask for more as an animation fan / fan of horror-y type thing? No, you couldn't. And I think that you can very much feel, especially Jordan Peele's, because he was a producer on it as well, you can feel his sensibility and where it really elevates the story. And I was lucky enough to have the chance to talk to Henry about it, and seeing where his suggestions have been implemented just makes it that much better. I think the core story is still Henry's, but you can just feel Jordan's sensibilities, and if you are a fan of his, this is going to be such a delight for you. This was just a great fusion, and I should talk about the plot briefly. So it centers around a character named Kat, who is voiced by Lyric Ross, who I think does an amazing job. Unfortunately, tragedy befalls her, and she ends up at a private school. It's very, she meets a bunch of folks she doesn't necessarily fit in with. And then simultaneously, while we are following her, we are also following Wendell and Wild, who are two demons, whose father is Buffalo Belzer, who's voiced by Ving Rhames. And Wendell and Wild are Key and Peele. And basically, the film is following Kat discovering some things about herself and how that intersects with the world of Wendell and Wild. And I don't want to give anything else away, but one of the other things that I loved about this movie is that it just integrates diversity without making it a thing. The characters look diverse. I do know that one of the big story changes that came out of Jordan Peele, especially coming on board, was that Kat, who is a young black woman, became the protagonist of the film. You've also got Angela Bassett in it as one of the, I think it's a religious school, so Sister Helly. James Hong plays the principal, or whatever you would call it at a religious school, Father Bests. You've also just got these characters who visually reflect a more diverse world, and it's not something we get to see often in animation, let alone stop motion. But also, there's more diversity in this film, I feel like, visually, than there is in most live-action films. So that was just an extra bonus treat. And I'm skirting aggressively around the plot because it is just one of those weird wild ride things that you should just go on it. You should go on the ride. If you like Henry Selick, or if you like Key and Peele, or if you like Jordan Peele's solo career, any of those three elements alone, there's enough of that DNA in this that it would be worth it. But to see the three combined was really exciting. It's not a perfect film. There are parts where you can feel the seams between the three styles a little bit more that don't work maybe as smoothly, but I think still getting to see an original story that happens to be in this wonderful medium is really fun. It's a good spooky season thing. I think a lot of people will really love the character of Kat. She is just a delightful protagonist. So Wendell and Wild, it's out streaming. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5.